Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see so many familiar faces and familiar names. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning. You might have heard me say before, I believe that communication is a miracle. And if what I'm thinking is what I say, and that's what you hear, and it makes it to your brain, then that is definitely a miracle. So the purpose of this is to make sure that we are communicating all the information that you need. And sometimes, it takes hearing it a few times before it all sinks in, right? So that's just what we're here for. We want to share some more information with you and make sure everybody has the same information. We also have some champion employers on the line to share some, some lessons learned and best practices that they've found. I realized this morning when I was preparing for this, it's a year since the rules went into effect last year on March 17th, and I'm just amazed at how far we've come in such a short time. And so without further ado, I will just get started here. I was thinking about this morning, let me share my screen and pull this up. We started with 2 schools and 4 champion employers. And then that second cohort, we had 12 participating schools. And I've lost track of how many employers. And then in January, we're up to 15 schools. And I'm excited to tell you by this May, we will have 20 sponsoring schools, colleges and universities here in Alabama. And I'm going to guess we're between 50 and 60 employers statewide and between 200 and 300 apprentices right now. So all LPN and RN. So just really, really exciting the growth that we've had. And we owe that all to you guys. Okay, I'm just going to, of course, put the antitrust laws up. We want to do this anytime we have employers together in the room. I'm going to mention some things about wage schedules and wages, but of course, you guys know the law, and so I'm just going to put that up there. All right, and so for today's agenda, I'm going to give you just a high-level nursing apprenticeship review. I promise to not go back over all the details that you've already heard a million times. And then we're going to hear some best practices for 5 champion employers who started either in the first or second cohort who have, graciously given us some time this morning. Then we want to open it up to question and answer. So if you have questions, if you'll please hold them to that point in the meeting. Okay, so one thing I wanted to make sure now that, and I'm assuming most of you either have your program up and running or you're really close. And so these were just a few high points of things that I wanted to cover with you. Make sure you know about these things. If there's something on here that I mentioned that you don't know about, or you want some more clarification on, talk to your sponsoring school or talk to us. Me, Tawana, Mike, Sophia, we're here to answer your questions about these things. All right, these are things that our programs have to be in compliance. So this is what the Code of Federal Regulations tells us. This is about all apprenticeships, not just your nursing. Number 1 is we're responsible for making sure those apprentices are safe when they're at work, when they're in class. And so they have to have some safety training. And for you guys, that can be PPE. It can be, what do we do if an intruder enters the building? All those kinds of things that you are doing safety-wise when you're onboarding your apprentices. Just make sure that's happening at work and that you're documenting that they've had safety training with you. Next, related instruction. That's probably very easy for you guys. That's one responsibility of an employer, is making sure that their apprentice is taking the classes they're supposed to be taking. But for you guys, it's just they're going to nursing school, so you really don't have to worry about that part. I would really think, as far as nursing, the one thing that is critically important is working with that sponsoring school to make sure that they are getting those clinical hours every semester. That is top priority. We've got to make sure that they are getting those scheduled and completed. So that'd be the only thing I'd say, make sure with related instruction. All right, number 3, the next thing to stay in compliance, make sure that your apprentices are getting that on-the-job learning that they're supposed to get. So remember, an apprenticeship has 2 types of learning, that related instruction For you guys, that's everything nursing school, including their clinicals. The second piece is the on-the-job learning. And the checklist for the things that they need to learn is that list of competencies from the Board of Nursing. And that's customizable per employer. Anything that's on there, once it's been validated by the school, they're allowed to now do during work hours for you. And if there's something on there that you don't do in that unit that you've hired them into in the hospital or in your facility, then that one can be marked NA. It's basically a menu of things for your journey worker to teach the apprentice, anything that applies to where you've hired them. All right, so making sure we're documenting that. Anti-harassment. Everybody who's involved in the apprenticeship, whether it's your journey worker, you know, your staff there at your facility who are they're overseeing the apprenticeship, your apprentices, everybody has to receive anti-harassment training. And we have some actually good materials from the DOL. If you need something, your sponsoring school can, you know, provide that for you. Just or check with one of us, the project managers, and we can get that for you. Last thing, wage schedule. That's in your Appendix D or Employer Acceptance Agreement. If you have questions about that, revisit that. Make sure that you know what they're supposed to be starting at. What do they have to do to be able to move down to that next step? Make sure your apprentices have all of that information too. Those are the big things, all right? So I'm going to now move to my frequently asked questions. Sometimes frequently, I would maybe say commonly, but you know, we're getting these on a pretty regular basis. So I wanted to cover these for you. All right, and Josh, if you're still on the line, I think you wanted to talk about this first one a little bit, and then maybe you have one that you were adding. But we do get this fairly commonly. Can the nurse apprentice work as a CNA or PCT during their apprenticeship? Are you still on the line, and did you want to talk? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Meredith. I am here. I will have to bail off here in a few minutes. We are going to be doing some interviews this morning, adding another person to our team, partly to backfill and partly to try to keep up. I just want to reiterate what Meredith said right at the beginning. We can't express to you how thankful we are for the growth and the flexibility that you've all demonstrated already as we figure out how to do this. I know that you probably have heard this before, but we're still the only state in the nation who's doing this at all. So if we've got 50 employers or 60 employers in the state, that means there are 50 or 60 in the country who are doing this. And we're being watched carefully by a lot of our peers from all over the country. But we have calls at least once a week, and they ask us, you know, questions about the basics of apprenticeship, but then they also want to know about, well, how is this working for your employers? So that's part of the function of this call today, is we want to hear if there's things we need to sort out, you know, or help you figure out, because doing it the first time is doing it the first time. That means there's a lot of figuring out as we go. So this first question is related to that, and this one has come up, I don't know, 2 or 3 times in the past few weeks, and so we wanted to address it. And it's ultimately just, can I have this nurse apprentice basically flip-flopping and some days be working as a nurse apprentice under that nurse apprentice license that they get from the Board of Nursing, and then other days have them come in and I need them to work as a CNA or a patient care tech or a, you know, whatever that particular role is. And it has become more and more clear to us that our position on this is no. They need to be a nurse apprentice from if they're at work, they need to be a nurse apprentice. We had been saying that, you know, we really discouraged flip-flopping because it could lead to confusion. Well, we've already seen it, real world examples where a nurse apprentice came in and, you know, they were asked to go and basically cover a spot where somebody didn't show up. And then they were tasked to do a thing that they really weren't qualified or trained to do yet. And that's exactly the scenario we were concerned about, is that, you know, having that person there on the floor and moving them around in different roles could lead to confusion about what they should and should not be doing. Now, we have heard, we understand we've got every variety here of, you know, we've got nursing homes and we've got rehab facilities and we've got big hospitals and we've got little hospitals. And we have heard your request about, you know, hey, I'm at a rural hospital and there's only, you know, X number of us, period. And if I need that person to backfill in another spot, can I pull them and have them go backfill in that spot? I understand the appeal of that, but I can just tell you that, like I said, we're no longer discouraging that. We're saying no. Now, you're the employer. You hire these people. So the relationship between you and them is really something that we can't directly control. But we're saying, if you ask us, the answer is no, because like I said, we've just seen some bad examples. We've also heard, hey, we want to give this person, and I think maybe we'll talk about the number of hours. I'm sure Meredith, yeah, there's a question on there. We recommend 20 to 24 hours a week. That's what we've heard from the students and the schools and most of the employers, that people think that's about a reasonable number of work hours that a student could keep up with and also still be keeping up with their school, without being overloaded. But there are going to be times where maybe they're out of school. Maybe it's, spring break is coming up, or it's Christmas break or whatever, and you want to give them more hours. And so the question was asked then, well, can I use them in another role, like a CNA or a patient care tech or whatever, to give them more hours? We're still going to say we do not want you to do that. If it's a care role, the opportunity for confusion is just too great. Now, I've also come up with other scenarios. Meredith and I were talking about this yesterday. If somebody wants me to cut the grass on Saturdays, if you're a small facility and you're like, hey, I can't, you want to come in and answer the phones or cut the grass or whatever, that's a whole different ball game. But we're talking about roles where that person would be providing care. We don't want to mix and mingle those, because the opportunity is just too great for confusion. So I hope that's clear and clarifies that question. We can't tell you what you can pay somebody to do, but we can tell you that if they're in the apprenticeship and you've got them flip-flopping roles and they wind up doing a thing that they're not supposed to be doing, or being asked to cover something like that, then you could lose your ability to participate in the apprenticeship. Meredith, does that pretty much cover the breadth of what you wanted me to address there?
Yes, and I'll say, you mentioned that that's our stance on it. That's the Board of Nursing stance on it too. As far as issuing those nurse apprentice permits, they have said they are a nurse apprentice, period. And and we've talked about this a lot. If you're short staffed, they just cannot be pulled. And I know Riverview is one of our champion employers who's on here today, and they have a system in place that I'll probably butcher it, but that prevents whoever's doing the pulling, that scheduling and everything. They have a way that their apprentices are flagged so that doesn't happen accidentally. Good. So I'm hoping they'll share about that today.
Okay. Well, the other, I guess, did you want me to address? Was there a second question you wanted me to talk about, Meredith, before I bail off?
Not well. No. I think, were you going to say anything about liability or no?
Oh yeah, is that in this list? So
no, I didn't add that, but yeah.
Okay, good. So yes, we also have had in the past few weeks several questions and a discussion ongoing with the college system office about liability insurance. So one of the things that we have been saying from the very beginning is that the nurse apprenticeship does not take away anything from nursing school. Whatever they had training-wise, supervision-wise, all of that, clinical hours, that's all still in place. The nurse apprenticeship adds training and adds supervision, adds experience. Well, that's also true in the question of liability insurance. So as you all probably know, when a student signs up and takes a class through the college and they're going to be doing clinicals, part of that class, when they register for that course, is signing them up for a school-based liability insurance policy. And so then the question was, well, does the employer still need to carry liability insurance? Or flip-flop that, if the employer's carrying liability insurance, does the school still need to provide that? And our answer to that is yes, and. It's not either or. So what the employer provides for every person on their payroll, whatever kind of liability insurance you buy for that PCT or CNA or nurse or everybody else that you have, this person is your employee. You need to have them covered under that same type of insurance as you would any of your other employees. And from the other end of that, the school has every nurse clinical student covered under their insurance, so they need to have them covered. So the person would be double covered in this case. which is fine, rather than having, okay, from 9 to 12 on Tuesday, they were a clinical student, so it was the school's responsibility, and from 1 to 4 on Friday, they were just working a shift, and so it was the employer's responsibility. Both should purchase the liability insurance the same as they would if that person had nothing to do with the school or if they had nothing to do with the employer. Is that clear? I see a few heads on the screen. If I'm making any sense, make this motion. Okay. All right. So that will help us just avoid any gaps, I guess you'd say, in coverage or any confusion about who's supposed to be covering who when. Both and. All right.
Right. Okay.
I know we're not doing Q&A, but I don't mind if anybody has any questions right now about those two topics while I'm here. I'd be glad to address those. Throw it in the chat or unmute yourself if you have one. Okay, I must have done a really amazing job.
Yes, thanks, Josh. Okay, my second question there, can employers require nurse apprentices to commit to working for a period of time after completing the apprenticeship? I know we've talked about this, just wanted to hit on that again. About half of you are asking for commitments, about half of you aren't. You certainly can if you want to. It's not part of the apprenticeship agreement. It would be part of your HR paperwork. And then Josh touched on how many hours a week do the apprentices work. We're recommending that 24. On any given week, that might be all work, it might be all clinical, it might be a combination of the two. And then, of course, if they want to work more hours, all of that is apprenticeship, whether it's clinical hours or work hours. And if they want to take on more, they can handle more and still be successful in school, and you need them more hours. Absolutely. But as you know, it's always that 1-to-1 ratio with their journey worker. They've got to have a journey worker there. Once they've been marked off on things, as proficient on the competencies, then they can do those things independently. The journey worker just has to be there, accessible and available if they need them. All right, are apprentices paid for all clinical hours? Yes, they're going to complete as many clinical hours at your facility as they possibly can, but anything that is done off-site with their regular cohort, they're still paid for those clinical hours. They're not paid for time spent in class or sim lab. And I like to think of it, it's kind of like a stipend. Sometimes our employers pay a stipend for their apprentices who go to class at night or whatever. It's basically a stipend for clinicals that happen off-site for you. Do the apprentices work between semesters? Absolutely. They're supposed to be working every single week for you. This is not just paid clinical hours. This is apprenticeship every week. It's basically their orientation, clinical, and practicum all wrapped up into one. So between semesters, if they need time off, they have to request that just like any other employee. All right, one more thing I want to share with you guys before we get to our employers who are going to share with you this morning.
Hey, Meredith.
Yes.
Can you back up to that last question one second? I just want to reemphasize that point.
Yeah, of course.
About the hours and the working in between semesters and all that kind of stuff. I know spring break is coming up, it's just a couple of weeks away for some of the schools. Please, employers, make sure that you communicate with your apprentices, because they may never have understood this yet. And they should, like Meredith said, communication is a miracle. So they've been told by their schools and all that kind of stuff. But I don't want to see somebody wind up losing their job or losing their spot in an apprenticeship because they misunderstood and thought, well, school's out. I can't work while school's out because I can't be supervised on clinical while school's out. So just please double down on that. It never hurts to give more communication and let them know, hey, if you plan to be out during spring break or whatever, then you got to request PTO. You got to let us know that you're not going to be here. But also remember that most of the people who are signing up for this are doing so that they can afford to do this and not have to work 3 or 4 shifts at the Taco Bell, to cover their bills. So generally speaking, every apprentice I've ever talked to about this has said, man, I'd love to be able to pull 40 hours that week. If they can find me work to do, I'd do it. So just wanted to kind of reemphasize that point, especially with spring break coming up, and don't want to lose any apprentices because of a misunderstanding over that. And I see you, Robin, in the in the chat there. So yeah, if you can clarify that, that'd be great. All right, thank you. Sorry, Meredith, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Okay, so I wanted to share this with you guys. Our office is partnering with EDPA to host a terrific conference there in early May. It's in Mobile. We would love for you guys to join us. It will be training providers, employers, economic developers, anybody who's interested in talking about recruiting, training, and retaining highly skilled employees in Alabama. One feature of the conference is the governor will be there on Thursday. She is recognizing the top 4 work-based learning programs in the state that she has awarded her seal of excellence in work-based learning to. And I'm excited to tell you guys, if you didn't know, Coastal Alabama's nursing apprenticeship was one of the recipients this year. Just doing an outstanding job, blazing the path for us and helping all of us figure this out together. And we're just so excited for them and to see them be recognized. And there will be a lot of other presentations on things like, job shadowing programs, employability skill training, how to all kinds of stuff about different generations in the workplace, recruiting minorities. There just is, it's really going to be a fantastic lineup. If you're interested in coming and joining us for that, we would love to see you there. Great opportunity to network as well. So there's our website at the bottom. If you go to our website, you'll see it right there on the front page. Okay, so let's move on to the heart of this meeting. Really excited. We've got Stephanie Willis from Mobile Infirmary with us and Jack Grove, Southampton Nursing and Rehab, Sherry and Becky. I'm assuming you're both on here from Riverview Regional. And I saw Bobby from Rehab Select, and then Kate and Spencer from Grandview Medical. I've asked each of them to take about 3 minutes to share something with you, either something, hey, this is working really well, or this is something we figured out in the first year, and here's what we're doing differently. And then an opportunity for you guys to ask questions. Now I'm going to try to see if I can figure out how to stop sharing. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, all right, so Stephanie, are you?
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Everyone. Thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it. The one thing that I will say that we learned early on, because we were one of the first startups, that we learned is that it's best not to flip your apprentices from role to role. We learned that the hard way. Not knowing going into it, we were kind of using ours as nursing assistant sitters or whatever, with the exception of their clinical days. But I would strongly recommend that you do not do that. It makes it more difficult. It has been a lot easier knowing for them as well as for myself when they come into the building that they're coming in the role of an apprentice. Another thing that we did that is going well for us is we put our nurse apprentices into a department by themselves that is managed by myself. So they have their own department. When they come into work, that's the department that they're in. When they come in and do their clinicals, it's coming out of that specific department. So it's streamlined that way, and that seems to be working really, really well for us in order to be able to keep up better with the number of hours that they've worked and the number of clinical hours that we have compensated them for by just putting in that information. One thing that is going well is, I will say for myself, is open communication with the school. That is important for changes, for issues that you may have with the students. And it eliminates that middle person. So you got to be flexible. You got to have that open communication, because it really does matter. And open communication also with the students makes a difference to the student as well. They all have my independent cell phone number that they can text me or call me and say, hey, I'm having this issue. And, if I'm in the building, we work it out. If I'm not in the building, there's a point of contact for them as well outside of myself. But I am their first point of contact. They don't have 3 or 4 different people in the hospital that they report to for the hospital. It's me directly. And then if I have issues with it, school related, I have a contact at the school. So it's streamlined that way, so that the student is not feeling like they are getting the runaround or getting an answer. So that seems to be working really well for us on my end. And that's about all I have to share. I hope that's helpful.
Very much so. And Stephanie, I don't know if you saw in the chat, I'm trying to pull my chat up. Anna Reeves said from Flowers, Stephanie has been such a huge help to Flowers in getting our program up and running. Thanks, Stephanie. So some kudos
Thanks,
to you.
Anna. I'm one of those that don't believe in reinventing the wheel. If it's already there, just share your information and let somebody fine tune it to their work. So if I can be of any assistance for anyone, not that I know all the answers, but you know, getting this from ground up, I've learned a lot. So if I can be of any assistance, I'm always available.
Wonderful. And if you guys decide to join us in May, you'll see a great video that Stephanie did as part of their presentation that talks about, you know, what she believes about this program and how she wishes this had been around when she was in nursing school. It's a very well done video. So thank you so much, Stephanie, for all that you're doing to help us figure this out.
Thank you.
All right, Jack, are you here with us? I know Jack, he gets the trophy for the day. He's on a field trip with his son and still trying to join us. So, yep, I see his. Can you, Jack, are you able to talk right now? We might need to come back to Jack. So, all right, let's see. Who did Riverview? I see Becky. Hey, Becky, why don't you go ahead and go and we'll circle back to Jack.
Hey, I think Sherry's on also.
Okay, great.
Sherry, you there? Okay, I'll start. So
I am.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, Becky. It's like a little mask house this morning at the hospital. You guys know how that works. So first, let me just tell you that we could not do this program without Becky. This is what her full-time job is. And she goes with the students from the moment that they become into the apprentice program all the way through their college career. Working with them, we provide free tutoring for anything that they need to help them be successful in school. She's constantly communicating with the colleges to find out, you know, what is it they're working on? What is it that the students need to hone in on? What can we provide, you know, maybe a focused process for them to learn, you know, a particular skill that they're really struggling with on the school side. One of the things that has really helped us, and I know that every hospital and nursing home, everybody is having the same staffing issues. And so what we have determined in order to protect our apprentices, to ensure that they're working inside the scope and that our house supervisors or our directors aren't looking to see how they can cheat the system or pull them or do different kinds of things, is that they're in a hidden cost center. So when whatever kind of bedboard system that you have that provides staffing sheets for the house supervisors, they do not get these students' schedules. They don't see them. They don't know that they exist. And so everything is handled 100% by Becky. We have sometimes opportunities where it makes sense to take a nurse with her apprentice and move them to a particular floor that would then, you know, let's say I have one floor. I'll give you an example. I have a very small floor that we only keep 6 patients on that floor. It's a detox program. So if I needed an opportunity to take her and her apprentice, and there's a PCT on the floor, so that nurse learns that all those 6 patients, she's doing her job. That apprentice is not being used as a PCT. They're not functioning out of anything other than what, you know, the program is designed for, but yet it does give them a third body on that floor to kind of act as a buffer in case you had a code or something. So we can get a little creative that way. But other than that, Becky handles 100% all of that. She knows if that student is far enough into that. So we're looking at those senior preceptors to, you know, kind of help bridge the gap once in a while as those helping hands kind of thing. But Becky handles all of that. She tells me, and I don't override her. Okay. Very, very important that this is hers, and then I trust her explicitly to run this program and manage it and know exactly where they are in their skill set, where they've been checked off, what level they are on, and what they're allowed to do from the college, and very, very important that she handles that. So I'm going to let her tell you about this because this is her baby and she's doing a fabulous job. Thank you.
Well, you're very sweet. I'll keep it short and sweet. Basically, the moment that the apprentices had applied at Riverview, We do a separate onboarding for them so that they're not lost in the general orientation process. We have our own onboarding for all of the apprentices. We carry them through as a nurse during orientation, except for one day that they'll get later on after they graduate. From that moment on, I will introduce them to their preceptors on their first day. I hand carry them to everybody, just like the kindergarten class, just because nobody likes to be the new kid in school. So I will carry them at any of their specialty clinicals. Their first day, I go with them. I introduce them to the staff, to the director, and the specialty preceptor that they have, like psych and critical care. And so they have a comfort level with me. My door is open for them for anything that they have. They come to me if they're having problems with preceptors, if they're having problems in school. I absolutely love what we're doing here. I love the opportunity. And for all of the CNOs and educators that might be on this call for the facilities, I need you to understand, if you haven't seen it yet, these apprentices are falling in love with med-surg bedside care. These apprentices are not necessarily seeking critical care at graduation, and they're not necessarily seeking procedural care because of the patient load. They are not afraid of it. They see the nurse to patient ratio from day one. They learn their time management and they learn their cluster skills. So you're going to be very, very impressed and excited with the graduation nurses that you take on. So I'll turn it back over to you, Meredith.
Thank you both so much. We really appreciate you, all that you're doing, and thank you for sharing your expertise with us this morning. Okay, I saw a note from Jack that said he should be good now. Jack?
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, technology, gotta love it. So yes, I kind of really want to emphasize and reiterate what was said earlier about communication. That has been the biggest thing that we've learned throughout this, which we knew it was going to be in the very beginning. We got in very early on when it was brand new. We have partnered with 3 schools. I see that Calhoun is represented here on the call today, and they're one of the ones that we have partnered with. And I think together we have learned a lot about this program and how to make it work better. One of the things we do collaboratively is we do routine Zoom calls, or team calls, I should say, where we're with the faculty, myself, my director of nursing, any other pertinent folks on our end, so we can discuss how things are going, how the apprentices are doing, and just really do what we're doing here, share best practices, what we've learned, how can we make the process smoother, not just for us, but for the apprentices more importantly. So that communication is definitely the biggest factor, but then not stopping there, but carrying that communication to the apprentices. When we did our first round of interviews almost a year ago for apprentices, we made it very clear to them that, you know, y'all need to be patient with us because it's a new program. There's going to be bumps along the road. We're going to figure this out together. Establishing that open communication from before they're even hired, so that they know if they have any frustrations to come to us, to go to the school. We're all going to work together. We're all going to figure it out. This isn't a smooth process yet, but we're going to get it there. So working collaboratively, very closely together, I would say is definitely the best practice for this. I will say in regards to having them swapping roles, we have seen, because we were doing it as well, before we knew, you know, we saw how it can work with about 25% of the apprentices, and then the other ones just get really confused and frustrated. So definitely is advisable to keep them on the same focused pathway for this. We've had some that want to pick up hours as CNAs. You know, that's something that we'll probably have to look at and collaborate with the school on a one-on-one basis and make sure that that student can handle it, because the student may tell us they can handle it, but then the school might say, you may not want to go down that path just yet. So again, just communicating, collaboratively, you know, being open, honest, available, accessible, not just to the school, but to your apprentice, to their preceptors, bringing in those preceptors for training. The schools that we're working with do very good training for preceptors. We're very appreciative of that training. That's pretty much what I got. Great.
Thank you so much, Jack. We really appreciate that. And, you know, completely agree. I think that consistent and regular communication between you and your partnering school, and Riverview kind of mentioned it, if somebody's falling behind either at work or at school, we want to all be on that same team and make sure our safety nets are in place, because we all, at the end of the day, this is about the apprentice's success, and we want to see them successfully finish school and be extra prepared employees for you. So great. Thank you. And again, thank you so much for joining us from the field trip. We really appreciate you and Southampton and all that you guys are doing. Bobby Stevenson, are you still here with us?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good deal. All right. Well, thanks for this opportunity, Meredith. And everybody needs a Becky for sure. No doubt about that. So anyway, one thing I want to talk about for us, some of the really good things and some things we've learned. Some of I don't want to reiterate on. Some communication is number one. We actually lost one because of poor communication on our part, and that really hurt. Even though it's only one counts, and so we've had to take a pause and relook at that location. And so we're running somewhere 14, 16 apprentices between 3 to 4 of our buildings. We haven't started that down in Montgomery yet. Trenton's getting close down there, so we're so excited. But what I want to say too, in nursing homes, hospitals, whatever, it basically says that, this is an opportunity to sell your building. You get a chance to get them in, sell them on what you do, the patient care that Riverview talked about a while ago, the hands-on. When I talk to the apprentices, that's what they're talking. They're getting to be hands-on with somebody right there with them. It's not a mannequin or whatever you call those things now, those expensive that breathe and make all those sounds. But anyway, they're absolutely loving it. And we've seen some really great, talented young ladies and gentlemen come in that it's just soaking it up. Second thing is the opportunity for growth, whether it's in the hospital, the nursing home. They get to see that opportunity of growth, because what I see with a newer generation is they're looking, what is that growth opportunity? Because you look at across how long will they stay in positions or not, and if they don't have that constant. And I've got one of those daughters who's she graduated in 2018 and she's in her 4th job, I think, but she's improved herself every time, but it's always looking for the next best gig or whatever. And my other 2 have been stable since they graduated, hadn't left, and love it. So, but that's the kind of attitude, we've got to look at keeping it changing, challenging, and because this world today is a different world that I grew up in, for sure. Other thing is when I talk to the apprentices, they say, man, it's like doubling your skills. You're getting it at school, you're getting it there. And they feel more, I guess their confidence level seems to be up, that's been an opportunity. And the other thing is we took a little while to get our program right of what we're going to do with them and things like that. And I'd say if anybody hadn't started on your end or struggling, you got to come up with a program. So, we had a great administrator and training program, and we pull in people from colleges that majored in healthcare and run them through those 2, 3, 4, whatever it may take. Each individual's different administrative program before we grow them up to hopefully run one of our buildings or run a unit at least and run a building. So we kind of did that with the nursing, because there's lots of positions in the nursing world in our facilities, and we've even started our own nurse practitioner program now. So that's something we're hoping to be able to even let them shadow nurse practitioners in our arena, since we have our own buildings now, and starting to provide those in Alabama for people that need them. Let's see, I tell you what, the colleges have bent over backwards to make this thing work, even though we struggled, or we had people and naysayers, that just, but these colleges have really put their effort into trying to make this work for the student and for us, and for them, so I have to say that. But, one thing I would say on the front end, I know most of these people may have already had apprentices or not, but you got to get your people on board. before you even start, because if they're not, you know, one of our facilities that's doing the best job now was the hardest to get over the hump with our nursing administrator, to try to get her over the, like, she looked at it as another job or whatever, you know, or for her staff or whatever. And so that was one. And then for skilled nursing facilities, to develop a budget. How many can you handle with the nurses, and how many can you budget for in your budget? You know, we're all paying extraordinary salaries these days over what we've ever done, whether you're a hospital or nursing home, nursing facility. So anyway, that's kind of, let's see, anything else. And I encourage, I'd say in nursing homes, but for the administrator to check in with these folks occasionally, even though you may have a mentor or whatever, they need that. There's one young lady that at one of our buildings in Alabaster that, you know, she needs that. She needs that encouragement. You know, she's had a failed past, and now she's in this and she's doing really good, but she needs that figure in her life to help her to kind of, you know, coach her on and push her forward, you know, because, you know, they talk about how hard the second semester is, and then the third semester. And, you know, those are the time we're getting them in second or third semester. And those are some very challenging time for these. You know, we've had a couple, the first group we got here in Talladega, I think we had 3 that didn't pass. 2 of those are back. They one worked as a medication aid certified, and one worked as a CNA. And then now they got back in school again, and they're back with us in Talladega. So, you know, you see the ones that really want to make it, to push it. Of course, you got to be there encouraging them too, because if I brought them in one semester, I sure don't want to lose them, you know. And anyway, sort of takes so long, but those are some of the things that I have seen, you know, work we need continuous work still. So
it's definitely a work in progress. Thank you so much, Bobby. That was all very valuable. I read somewhere that millennials will change jobs 12 times, you know, within their career. And I do find that really interesting. And all that you were talking about, that y'all are adjusting to figure out what it takes to retain, you know, this new generation in the workforce. So I'm going to put another plug in for our conference in May. We do have a plenary session about that, you know, looking at, you know, millennials and Gen Z, and how do we recruit them into our workforce, and how do we keep them? There's just going to be a lot about that talent retention, which I think will be very interesting to you guys in the healthcare industry. So thank you so much, Bobby. Appreciate you. And Kate and Spencer from Grandview, are y'all still with us? I see y'all. Great.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kate Sewell. I'm the Education Director here at Grandview. We're really happy to be here to talk to y'all today, and just feel really lucky to be included in this program. And we've learned a lot just by listening to other folks. So Bobby and Rebecca and everybody, thank y'all for sharing everything that you've shared thus far. We started the apprenticeship back last fall. We took on 6 apprentices here, started small, just wanted to make sure we could do this thing well. And I think that has really helped us in terms of working through those initial hiccups of learning this program and making sure we're doing a great job for those 6. We did have 1 who was unsuccessful on the academic side, so we're down to 5, but those 5 have done an amazing job. And we love them, and we're really excited to have them as a part of the Grandview family for a long time. I'm going to turn it over to Spencer and let her talk about some other best practices and let her introduce herself. She is my best practice because I cannot manage this program independently, kind of like the setup you guys have at Riverview. So I'm going to let her share some of the things that we've learned, because she's also done an amazing job with our apprentices thus far.
Hi, everyone. I'm Spencer. I want to mimic what everybody has talked about as far as the communication. That was a large learning curve for us in our first semester. It has definitely improved this semester by one of our schools actually got a extra faculty member to curtail the program, and it has helped tremendously because the students, we have more broad coverage for them. I check in daily with them every time they're here for a work shift, clinical shift, all of the above. And then they also have that faculty from the school checking in with them. And so it's really improved our semester so far. And I would just definitely encourage y'all to have that strong communication with the school, because it has changed things on every front for us. I think our biggest success so far this semester has been just being able to watch them grow into those stronger future nurses. So we are about to hit our 6-month mark with our apprentices, and it's just so amazing to see how much their nurses, their nurse directors, their PCAs, their future other coworker nurses have bought into their role and have really championed them and their learning on their unit. And that's really exciting to see. I would also mimic the buy-in that they have for med-surg. One of my other job responsibilities outside of the apprenticeship is nursing retention, and we are seeing, and I mean here and everywhere across the nation, we're seeing such a large transition shock for our new grad nurses coming into their first nursing role. And the beautiful thing about the apprenticeship is that they get a year to learn that transition and develop those skills and develop that communication and the charting and the patient care and the cluster care and all of that. So their transition is going to be weeks of a period compared to where other nurses have to go through that hard 6 months to a year. And I'm really excited to see what that means for them in the long run as nurses. But as of right now, it's amazing to see. I mean, I remember being a second and third semester nursing school student, and I couldn't do half the things that they're doing in the apprenticeship. And it's just really refreshing. And I think it means so much for the future of nursing altogether for us. But one thing that we've also learned this semester is prepare for mentor turnover. We've had 2 that have gone on to travel jobs, and it's, caused us to get creative, but prepare for that and to have other mentors on standby. The mentors that we lost were huge and very pivotal to our program, but we've been able to readjust and use mentors from our one student that unfortunately did not pass last semester. But it's something that moving forward, we are going to prepare better for, just in case. And another thing is quality over quantity. I cannot imagine had we brought on many more than 6 the first semester, but it seems like that 5 to 6 range has let me be as present and available to them as much as possible. And I mean, because they all have things going on outside of work and here, and need a little extra TLC at times, but that 5 to 6 range has really let us perfect our system moving into the second semester with them.
Spencer's a scheduler, just like you are, Rebecca. She's a therapist. She's got all these other things that she's now doing for our apprentices, which is great.
But I absolutely love it. It is one of the most favorite things of my my job.
It's so fulfilling, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I mean, and every day that I check in with the mentors, it's amazing to see how much they are bought in, but how much they love their apprentices' progress. Like they just take it yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we're just really grateful to be here, y'all. I'm lucky to have Spencer, just like you guys are lucky to have Becky, but it takes a team, and it is super, super critical to have buy-in from your facility and then have the support that you need in terms of staff to be able to run the program and run it well.
I agree. I'm going to interject real quick, Meredith. Just one thing.
Go for it.
Go ahead with what Grandview said. The mentors, the preceptors, the journeymen, whatever title you're using at your facility, I know at Riverview at first, everybody was like, well, okay, I guess I'll do it. Now we have people saying, when am I going to get an apprentice?
Yeah, absolutely.
So just because you may be feeling some pushback at first while you're developing this program does not mean you're going to sustain that pushback, because they are watching, the peers are watching the mentors and the apprentices as well, and they are loving what they're seeing. And it's actually as strange as it sounds, the apprentice program has helped morale in a hospital because they see the help, they see the future help, and for their future coworkers.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I want to hear. That's amazing. Very good. Thank you so much. And Spencer and Kate, I remember we were at your first signing day, and some of your mentors and journey workers were there, you know, and they had only had those apprentices a few weeks, and it was obvious they were already that invested. Like, these are my babies, and I want to be here to celebrate their signing. So
I think they're going to actually really miss them when they're real nurses. Yeah, because you definitely build a little codependent relationships in a great way.
Yeah, but that I do think that buy-in is critical, and Becky, that's great to hear that you're saying that it's kind of done a 180 and increased morale. I mean, wow. Could we ask for more? Probably not. I see 2 questions that have come in the chat, so I'm going to stop spotlighting y'all. So anybody who wants to answer this, please. One is, does anyone have policies that you have already developed to cover this program? If so, please share. And another is, how are your mentors being incentivized?
Meredith, I'll be glad to answer the incentive question. At Mobile Infirmary, we do incentivize our mentors. When our mentors are coming in and they know that they have a apprentice with them for that specific shift, there is a certain code that they will put in our timekeeping system, which we use API, and that will let HR know that for these number of hours they had an apprentice with them, and we do pay them a difference of $2 an hour more added on to their base pay. And as far as our policies goes, we have written hours guidelines that they are kind of function under the guidelines of the school, as far as when they're here as an apprentice. When they're here employed, all the specific guidelines and policies that we have in place for employees related to time and attendance and things like that, that's what they also function under.
We'll chime in on that, Meredith, as well. Stephanie, I think we're similar policy-wise. We really kind of, they're umbrellaed in under a few existing policies we have, and then we just added some segments to a couple of those to make sure that we covered the new title of nurse apprentice. But everything we do policy-wise refers back to either the Board of Nursing or the AOA or something like that, or their school, like Stephanie said, to make sure they're covered. We incentivize our mentors as well. We kind of do it as a part of our clinical ladder. They're able to get incentivized that way. And our clinical ladder is structured as an annual bonus based on the work that they do during the given year. So this enables them to access that bonus as their work on the ladder for the year.
Great. Thank you. Anything else you guys want to share, or any other questions from our attendees?
Meredith, this is Hope at Auburn. I have a question for you guys.
Okay. Hey, Hope.
Hey, I want to just make sure we're doing things right. We assign, the hospital assigns our apprentice students with their mentors for their clinical hours. But then when they do their work hours, let's say their 24 work hours or whatnot, they are functioning as techs. So you guys are saying you don't want us to do that anymore.
Right. Yes, they're supposed to have a separate job title of nurse apprentice, and anytime they're at the facility, they're functioning as nurse apprentice. Sometimes they're doing the school part, sometimes they're doing the work part, but they're always nurse apprentice when they're there.
Okay, so do they have to be supervised by a mentor when they're working? When they're not doing their clinical hours, they still have to be supervised by a mentor, journeyman?
Yes, at all times. That's just, I mean, that's the apprenticeship. Whether they're doing the school part or the work part, they're there as an apprentice. They've got to have the journey worker with them.
All right. And then my last question is, so we're out for spring break, and Auburn has decided that it's up to the apprenticeship student if they would like to work during that time or like be off Christmas break or whatnot. And we've talked to our hospital about that. Is that still okay that we give these students the ability to be off that time, the breaks that the school has, or is that not okay?
Well, I mean, you've got to remember they're employee first. So they're an employee of that facility. I mean, there's nothing wrong with talking to them about that and saying, if you need a break, you can ask off. But I mean, if the employer says, no, we need you for 2 shifts that week, they're an employee of that hospital.
Okay. All right, thank
But
you.
I imagine, most of our employers on here are going to be as flexible as they possibly can be. And, but they are also short staffed. So yes, ultimately the employer is who would decide that. But, I'm sure you can have a conversation with them and make suggestions, but they ultimately make that decision.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Meredith.
Sure. Thank you for asking those questions and clarifying those. Anything else? We really do appreciate everybody joining us this morning and, sharing with each other, asking great questions. We just, of course, we wouldn't be here today without all of you. I echo what Bobby said, the colleges and universities who've jumped on this in these first 3 cohorts and are preparing for the 4th cohort. And we have another one that's already getting lined up for August. This is just a really big deal. We could not do it without them and their leadership. And then, of course, you guys as the employers, we really, truly appreciate your partnership and all that you are doing to help us figure this out and make it successful. So I think all of you know where to find Mike and Sophia and Tawana and Josh and me. Anytime you need us, if there's anything that we can do to help you guys, please reach out.
Well, Meredith, you've been a wonderful help too, and I didn't mention your name a while ago, but gosh, you've been a cheerleader helping me communicate with one college. Hey, you've got so many interested. I mean, so those are great because it gets overwhelming when you're working with 5 or 6 different colleges,
Sure.
I mean, it's hard enough with one facility trying to do one college, but doing multitasking just is tough. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. That's what we're here for. But I really do appreciate you saying that. And again, thank you everyone for your time this morning. We really appreciate it. Let us know if we can do anything else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Meredith.
Yeah, y'all are welcome.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.